Hello and welcome to Crypto Weeklies. In this video, we analyze Bit Tensor and its token TAO and conduct data analysis based models to identify whether Bit Tensor and TAO are in accumulation zone or not. None of the content financial advice. We start with this time weighted average price model. This model is available on my website cryptoweeklies.com, link on the bottom of your screen. Under this area of top 100 cryptos by market cap, if you search Bit Tensor or TAO, you would find the pertaining chart under the time weighted average price or TWAP analysis section. The time weighted average price is rather than looking at the current price with respect to just a simple moving average or how it is in this current iteration of the snapshot. This model looks at where the asset has spent its entire life and also identifies through the gravity of time whether the price currently is at a level where it has spent really less amount of time, where for example entering at that price where essentially beating the clock, where the market has spent very less time. The time weighted average price line, this white line over here, provides that area of support. That doesn't mean that the price never goes below the time weighted average price. If it goes, and if the underlying hypothesis is that the underlying asset, that is Bit Tensor and TAO over here, has a future, if TAO has a future, it's very likely that accumulating below the time weighted average price, not the worst idea. So TAO has been, again, we have analyzed TAO since 2023, since the price since that asset was launched at the end of that bear market. So this is the first complete bear market for Bit Tensor and its token TAO, as token was launched in March of 2023, almost 3 years ago. So now the price with respect to the time weighted average price, at one point in mid February 2026, when the price was at around around $145 and the time weighted average price was $305, there was a 50-55% discount on the time weighted average price model. Now that discount has evaporated. Now the time weighted average price is $301 and the price is $307. You can see how this kind of shapes with respect to the last 7 days as well, and the last 24 hours. The price of Bit Tensor and its token TAO has been on the ascent, and has been one of the top leading major cryptos over the last 7 days. So where do we go from here? Again, if there is a resistance at the time weighted average price, and if there is further downside, again accumulating at this point, with that hindsight that price did spend a considerable amount of time going down in the early part of 2026, late 2025, early 2026, when the price met this, whenever the price went close to the white line over here, it met with a resistance and then came and formed newer lows, not the market cycle based lows, but again the lows from the bull market, beginning of the bull market, that is from 2024. Again in April 2025, the low was at around $180. In 2026 at around $145. What I would imagine is that going forward, again, if there is a rally, and if there is one breakout away from the time weighted average price in the later half of 2026, what could likely happen is that the price goes again below the time weighted average price and forms somewhat of a double bottom somewhere, ideally closer to that $145 level, and then carve out a different trajectory in 2027. So accumulating at this point, although the time weighted average price based risk is in this risk level 1, where accumulating at risk level 1, historically speaking, in this plum shaded region, not the worst time to accumulate. And the opposite is when to kind of start thinking of distribution is whenever risk level is higher than risk level 7. We are again several layers away from risk levels away from that level, but right now in the shorter term, if there is a risk level 2, rally to risk level 2, then the lower point of that risk level 2 back in 2025 was at around $340, so about $40 higher from the current price. If we were to look from another perspective, Bit Tensor and token TAO, from regression based perspective rather than time weighted average price based perspective, what you would see that again this launch, the data point at the launch was closer to 0, but if you enable this polynomial regression based outlook for what a fair value of TAO is, per this model, $168 is likely to occur in the later half of 2026. As you can see, the regression based fair value has been going down since about 2025 February, as the price action is consistently in the formation of this lower highs. Again, you can see the highs from 2024 were much higher than 2025, also in 2026, and the lower lows. The lows in 2024 were at around $220. In 2025 April were at $185, roughly speaking. In 2026 at $145. So per this regression based outlook, right now the price has come really close to the dotted red line, which is again like a elevated risk level from the regression based perspective. Right now the regression risk is at around 0.69. That means it's somewhere between risk level 6 and 7, one of the higher or heightened risk levels at this point, not at the peak euphoria level, but nonetheless not to be ignored with respect to where the last major counter trend rally based peak was occurred for Bit Tensor. So per this regression based model, accumulating at this point does not make that much of a sense. What could likely happen is, if the bearish tidings for 2026 continue for the next 5 to 6 months, it's more than likely that price action comes and test at least that $168 level, and maybe it would be a higher low than the one that we saw in the one that we saw in February 2026 at around $145. So those kind of things could be ahead of us. So it makes sense to again consider that outlook or that outcome as well. In terms of where the worst case scenario for Bit Tensor and its token TAO could go, if let's say there is a recessionary bear market towards the end of 2026, the floor for TAO is at around $86. That's where the 2025 lows unfortunately took the price action below that level. Right now that level is at around back then it was at around $232. Right now it's at around $86. That's the worst case scenario for TAO in 2026. All in all, if we were looking for any analysis with respect to what the future for TAO could look like, in terms of not just the regression model or the time weighted average price model, the third model in terms of the shorter term levels, this is the 20-week simple moving average price based risk levels. They were also bottomed in February 2026 when the risk level was 9%, or in the risk level 1 category. Now it's at risk level 4, at the end of risk level 4 at 40% risk. In the last counter trend rally or last major rally, risk levels at the peak were at 0.5. So there is still some wiggle room for TAO to go and rally some more. But the likelihood of once the risk level 5 is achieved, or 0.5 risk levels, price hasn't seen a risk level higher than 0.5 in ages almost. The last time risk was higher than risk level 5 was back in 2024 itself. So you can see that the last print higher than 50% risk came in December 2024, whereas every time in 2025 or later, or even in the later half of 2024, later half of 2024 December, the peak was at around these levels. Entirety of 2025 at 50% risk, or between 0.4 and 0.5 risk. So that's where the current risk level is also close enough to that level, coming at around end of that 0.4 risk level. If rally were to continue any further, likely the likelihood is that the risk levels could get close to that 0.5 risk. So very close to the end of the counter trend rally for TAO. In terms of the estimated bear market bottoms for this market cycle, the worst case scenario was $86, but again, that is just one model saying that it could go. Logically speaking, if we were to tune out the noise of any individual model, the risk regression model, the time weighted average price model, and SMA model, the base bear case for TAO is at around $142. Again, not too long ago, the price action or the price floor was at around $146. So in the later half of 2026, I would be really surprised if the price action doesn't get close to $160 or so. If something worse were to happen in the market, the worst case scenario for TAO in a recession is $86. But barring that full blown recession, the panic case scenario for TAO is at around $114. Trying to conclude on a bullish note, if let's say 2026 goes on well and 2027-2028 time period is good recovery with a decent alt season for the asset class, the bull case scenario for TAO is at around $560, which is roughly speaking from the current price is at around 2x. But let's say if there is a drop to $100 or slightly higher than $100 to $120, let's say, and a rally to $600 is a 5x from that level. With that, I would like to conclude. Hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, please give a like and subscribe, and hope to see you again tomorrow. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye-bye.